Hello and welcome to the topic Individualized Instruction. Overview. Teaching is the act of imparting knowledge and skills in an individual. It is a process of disseminating useful information to an individual or a group of individuals. It could be seen as inculcating the right thing at the right time, using the right method in the right learners. Many a time, teachers face great challenges imparting knowledge not because they are not knowledgeable about the subject matter or effective teaching methods. This is because they are not familiar with the individual differences of their learners. Individualized instruction is a type of instruction of a student based on his/her unique learning style. The specific instruction and types of services provided to the student is tailored to fit the student and wholly depends on the educational needs of the student. In individualized instruction method, the instructional materials, media and activities is designed for individual learning. The pace, interests and abilities of the learner determine the curriculum. Individualized instruction is a method of instruction in which content, technology, use for instruction and pace of learning are based upon the abilities and interests of each individual learner. Individualized instruction is opposite to mass instruction, in which content, materials and pace of learning are the same for all students in a classroom. Mass instruction began during the French Revolution and Industrial Revolution. At this time, there was need for large number of workers to produce goods in large scale. During mass communication at this time, all the citizens were considered equals. In a mass instruction method, the main aim is to teach groups of students the same skills at the same time in a classroom. This method reduces both cost and time. The first individual instruction plans were developed between 1910 and 1920, but were not popular and failed probably because the task fell mostly to teachers who could not manage plans for 20 to 30 students by themselves. In the 1920s, it was reintroduced and several plans were developed that were quite successful. This time, the method involved self-directed instruction as well as teacher-led instruction, and therefore, unlike the previous period, it was successful. Individualized instruction is like direct instruction, which also places greater reliance upon carefully prepared instructional materials and explicitly prepared instructional sequences. The difference is that direct instruction is very rigidly structured for use with children. Learning that takes place in an organized environment through the conscious effort of a teacher is referred to as conscious learning. Unconscious learning takes place when an individual learns things by interacting with his environment. Thus, learning can also take place without a teacher. Mathematically speaking, learning can be seen as the difference between the behavioral pattern of a learner before an experiential activity and after the experiential activity. Individualized instruction does not require a one-to-one student-teacher ratio, which means that individualized instruction is not one-to-one tutoring. It is simply varying the process to meet the needs of each individual learner in the group. Individual instruction is like personalizing instruction. One way to personalize instruction using individualized instruction is through the use of carefully selected instructional materials. Individuals with different learning styles may use different materials to study similar content. Computer-based instruction can also be a good way to accomplish this. This is because computer-based instruction uses a multimedia approach that's useful with a variety of learning styles. This allows the learner to move at his or her own pace more easily, since he or she doesn't need to rely as much on explanations from lectures. It also frees much of the instructor's time from lectures so that he or she is able to spend most of the time monitoring learners' progress and assisting those who need it. The use of individualized instruction can also meet individual learner needs by allowing content to be varied to a certain degree according to the interests and strengths of the learner. Once basic required content has been learned, individuals can be free to pursue additional learning within the subject according to their interests. Also, learners with strengths in certain areas can spend extra time on them and have them incorporated into other subject areas where possible. Examples of individualized instructions. Individualized instruction is a teaching technique that involves teaching learners individually according to their mental and behavioral makeup. It is a teaching technique where every teacher considers the interest of all his learners. The prerequisites for effective and efficient use of individualized instruction are identifying the individual differences of the pupils or children, tailoring teaching to suit the differences. The bottom line is that individualized instruction takes into consideration the individual differences of the learners, and the teaching is according to the ability of the learners. To understand the research base in this area, there are many examples of instructional approaches that were developed to improve the instructional experience for the individual learner. Two such examples are given below. Personalized system of instruction. This method of individualized instruction was introduced in 1964 by Fred Keller. It is also called Keller Plan. It is perhaps one of the first comprehensive systems of individualized instruction and was based on 10 accepted educational principles: active responding, positive conditions and consequences, specification of objectives, organization of material, mastery before advancement, evaluation, objectives, congruence, frequent evaluation, immediate feedback, self-pacing, personalization. Keller Plan cites many benefits, including better retention and increased motivation for further learning. According to critics, the disadvantages of Keller Plan were limited instructional methods, high dropout rates, and decreased human interaction. Auto tutorial method. Audio tutorial is a method of individualized instruction developed by Samuel N. White in 1961 at Purdue University. His goal was to find an improved method of teaching botany to a larger number of college students and to effectively assist the students who possessed only limited backgrounds in the subject. The development of an audio tutorial program requires a significant amount of planning and time by the instructor. Students have access to a taped presentation of a specifically designed program that directs their activities one at a time. The basic principles of audio tutorial plan are repetition, concentration, association, unit steps, use of the communication vehicle appropriate to the objective, use of multiplicity of approaches, use of an integrated experience approach. The major benefit of this method is that the students can adopt the study pace to their ability to assimilate the information. Difficult subjects are repeated as often as necessary for any student. The students can also accelerate the pace of their learning rather than taking more time. Other benefits are that students feel more responsible for their learning, and more students can be accommodated in less laboratory space and with less staff. The disadvantages involve teacher control, that the instructor dictates all of the material, including the learning and feedback procedures. This is a severe form of teacher control of the student. Another criticism concerns the claim of responsibility, that is, some students respond to the responsibility placed upon them while others do not. Individualized instruction comes in many forms. all of which seek to improve instruction in some way. Each approach has its own set of prescriptions, and each has been heavily criticized. Yet, that is to be expected. Even now, individualized instruction in its various forms is still a relatively recent innovation. Individualized instruction versus traditional instruction. Individualized instruction is an instructional method that personalizes instruction to the need and learning style of the learner. This is done by varying the pace of instruction, the method of learning employed, and the content to be learned. Often, this is accomplished within the context of a larger group through the use of high-quality instructional materials and reduced lecture time. Individualized instruction uses a multiple sensory approach to teaching. It increases students' activity. Traditional instruction is teacher-centered. Here, a group of students sit and listen to an instructor lecture about a subject. Based on the subject, an instructor may use a chalkboard or other teaching aids sparingly. In a traditional approach, if a student misses a key point, he will have to ask for a repeated, which will interrupt the whole class. If a student is weak in a certain area, there is only a little time available to reteach that area, even if it is identified early. Because of this, only a few students get high grades. Most have gaps in their understanding of the subject area, and some students fail. Traditional instruction is designed for a homogeneous group of learners, but individualized instruction is designed for a heterogeneous group. Instructions are usually designed to account for specific learners' characteristics. When students are being assessed in the traditional method, there is a tendency to compare students' progress with other students. This can have a negative effect on the child who may not be able to compete with the other students in the class. Despite the fact that an individual is improving, he or she may feel inferior to the other students. They may not participate in class either because of their low self-esteem or because they simply don't get the chance to participate. This does not happen in an individualized instruction because it is a one-to-one instruction method. A student's progress is compared with his own previous result. This will motivate them as they see themselves improving. Teachers are able to ask each student questions to know whether they have mastered the current content in the individualized method setting. In the traditional method, the teacher will not have enough time to ask each student questions. Both traditional approach to teaching and individualized instruction approach to teaching have three fundamental variables. They are pace, method, and content. The pace has to deal with the rate at which each topic is learned by the students. The method deals with the style or technique involved in which the learning process takes place. The content is the actual information or material that the students will cover. The content of the learning material are both determined before the students start learning in both the methods. In the extreme, the student will control the learning pace in the individualized method. The teacher controls the pace in the traditional method. When students control the pace at which they learn, they'll know and understand the information before they move on to a new topic. In a traditional classroom setting, time is constant and achievement is a variable. In a properly individualized setting, where students study and progress more independently, achievement becomes more uniform and time to achieve that level of achievement is more variable. The student will be more relaxed and he or she will enjoy the learning experiences more in an individualized setup. Computers will always motivate young learners. Using computers in individualized instruction will motivate the computer lovers. If the teacher sets up or provides the information in such a way that each student will be able to both learn it using a strategy that he or she likes and at a comfortable pace, then that will motivate him or her, as it gives a sense of control. Students receive immediate feedback, and therefore they can work on their weaknesses if they use the one-to-one student to teacher computer method. Advantages and disadvantages of individualized instruction. The advantages of individualized instruction are many. Individualized instruction is a method of managing the instructional process without requiring live lectures from teachers. One of the ways individualized instruction tries to meet the needs of the learner is by varying the pace of instruction. In this method, the teacher sets up programs that allow each student to learn at her own pace. Though some students may take longer time, the achievement outcomes are typically the same. By allowing learners to progress through content at their own pace, more knowledge is retained and less time is wasted. Individuals who are able to grasp a concept quickly are able to move on, while those who need more time to understand can take as much time as they need without pressure to match the pace of the group. This can mean that learners are at different levels in different subjects as well, progressing rapidly through subjects that involve areas of strength and slower through those that require more effort. The student acquires instruction through multiple sensory approaches in the individualized method. In traditional method, the student depends mostly on his sense of hearing to take in new information. With the aid of computers, the student will receive information through several of his senses at the same time. Not only this, the method of individualized instruction helps students gain pre-professional experience. The method creates a personalized academic program encouraging innovative teaching and learning. In this method, the students take the initiative for one's own education, developing behavior pattern necessary for success. Linking practical knowledge with the goals of a liberal education is also another advantage. Still, another benefit of individual instruction is that it can permit every student to achieve mastery of tasks undertaken. At any level of schooling, different students can work towards different goals. Different students can use different learning materials or equipment in working towards the same goal with the help of individual instruction. Different types of students can learn a given task in different types of individual or group settings. When it comes to educating students with learning disabilities, individualization is the name of the game. Children with learning difficulties learn best when they are able to work in a one-to-one situation when needed. The vast majority of students with learning difficulties struggle with their reading and literacy skills. But learning difficulties is a hidden disability that easily fades into the background. Therefore, teachers with specialized education training offer programs that meet the individual needs of the children. They limit the class sizes to no more than 6 or 7 students to allow teachers to work with each student on a personal level. The ultimate goal is that a child is productive and happy and ends up being a happy and productive adult. With so much of advantages, the system also has many pitfalls. Many students do not respond well to the traditional lecture style type of teaching, but it is impossible to have an environment in which each student has his own one-to-one tutor. A teacher cannot give individual attention to more than one student at a time. So, this will require teachers to provide structured learning materials to the students. Individual instruction is best possible if the class size is small. No school system could afford anything close to one-to-one student-teacher ratio or private tutoring. Not only this, individualized instruction will be successful only if the student learn and use competencies in planning and conducting learning activities without depending on the teacher. The quality of the instructional materials becomes extremely important when individualized instruction is being used. Materials need to be of exceptional quality, fully explaining the content to be learned. Otherwise, it will be a failure. The one-to-one student-to-teacher computer is far more expensive than the traditional way of teaching. If computers are going to be used for a one-to-one method, it will require that enough computers are brought so that more than one student can learn at a time. These computers will need special or customized software which would be expensive. Technician would have to maintain the computer system to ensure that it is always running. It would be extremely difficult if the students to be trained outnumber the teachers available or computers available in class. In individualized instruction method reduces socializing between students and information is limited to what's provided by the teacher or computer. The traditional method is more feasible when large quantities of students are to be taught. Traditional approach to teaching encourages students to socialize and interact with each other. This is very important in young children. It teaches them to work together with each other and to develop proper socializing skills. Another aspect that should be taken care in individualized teaching method is the assigning of teachers. The personality and teaching styles of teachers are different. So, this is important in determining how well a given student progresses. So, assigning teachers in individualization should be done with due care. Individualized instruction is instruction that considers the needs of the students. Children show remarkable differences in physique, temperament, and intelligence. For a teacher to be successful, he must inculcate the principles of individualized instruction when teaching and relating with his pupils. The students will control the pace at which they progress through instruction, and the materials they use should be suited to their cognitive skills and learning styles. In brief, individualized instruction has the potential to improve instruction by varying the pace of instruction, the instructional method, and the content. Let us summarize the major ideas discussed in this session. The chapter mainly focuses on individualized instruction. Nowadays, teachers face great challenges imparting knowledge not because they are not knowledgeable about the subject matter or effective teaching methods. This is because they are not familiar with the individual differences of their learners. Here comes the importance of individualized instruction. Individualized instruction is a method of instruction in which content, technology used for instruction, and pace of learning are based upon the abilities and interests of each individual learner. The specific instruction and types of services provided to the student is tailored to fit the student and wholly depends on the educational needs of the student. The prerequisites for effective and efficient use of individualized instruction are to identifying the individual differences of the pupils or children and tailoring teaching to suit the differences. Some examples of individualized methods are personalized system of instruction and auto-tutorial method. The first method of individualized instruction was introduced in 1964 by Fred Keller. It is also called Keller Plan and was based on 10 accepted educational principles. They are active responding, positive conditions and consequences, specification of objectives, organization of material, mastery before advancement, evaluation, objectives, congruence, frequent evaluation, immediate feedback, self-pacing, and personalization. Audio tutorial is a method of individualized instruction developed by Samuel N. Postwhite in 1961 at Purdue University. The basic principles of audio tutorial plan are repetition, concentration, association, unit steps, use of the communication vehicle appropriate to the objective, use of multiplicity of approaches, and use of an integrated experience approach. The chapter makes a comparison of the traditional method of teaching with individualized teaching. Individualized instruction uses a multiple sensory approach to teaching. It increases students' activity. Traditional instruction is teacher-centered. Traditional instruction is designed for a homogeneous group of learners, but individualized instruction is designed for a heterogeneous group. When students are being assessed in the traditional method, there is a tendency to compare students' progress with other students. This does not happen in an individualized instruction because it is a one-to-one instruction method. A student's progress is compared with his own previous result. Both traditional approach to teaching and individualized instruction approach to teaching have three fundamental variables. They are pace, method, and content. The pace has to deal with the rate at which each topic is learned by the students. The method deals with the style or technique involved in which the learning process takes place. The content is the actual information or material that the students will cover. The student will control the learning pace in the individualized method. The teacher controls the pace in the traditional method. In a traditional classroom setting, time is constant and achievement is a variable. In a properly individualized setting, where students study and progress more independently, achievement becomes more uniform and time to achieve that level of achievement is more variable. In the last module of the chapter, both the advantages and disadvantages of adopting the individualized method is explained. Now, you can try to answer the questions here. 1. What's your understanding of individualized instruction? 2. What's the similarity and difference in individual instruction and direct instruction? 3. Explain in detail traditional method and how it differs from individualized method of instruction. 4. Compare the advantages of individual instruction with that of traditional instruction. 5. What are the disadvantages in adopting individualized instruction in class? Now, you can refer these books for further understanding. Individualized Instruction Programs and Materials, James E. Duane, Educational Technology Publications, Inc., Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, 1973. The Educational Technology Review Series, Individualizing Instruction, George Bartner, Educational Technology Publications, Inc., Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, 1973. Thank you for watching the program. We will meet again with another topic. Till then, take care.